With home prices across Canada skyrocketing right now, there are calls from the government to step in and slow down the Canadian real estate market to stop buyers from overbidding. One of the suggestions is to remove the practice of blind bidding, where buyers submit offers not knowing what their competition's offer is. So on this episode of Bald Prairie Real Estate, we're going to be looking at blind bidding and see if it makes sense to remove it and protect buyers from overbidding. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bald Prairie Real Estate, where I educate you about Canadian real estate. If you're new here, my name is Matthew Pfeiffer. I'm a real estate agent from Regina, Saskatchewan. Today's episode, we are talking about blind bidding, when buyers submit offers not knowing what other buyers have submitted and what that purchase price is, resulting in some buyers paying significantly more than the next highest offer. So before I get into this video, I want you right now, hit pause if you have to, but put in the comments below, do you think blind bidding should be stopped? And will that slow down buyers from overpaying? Then once you're done watching this video, and I'm going to present both sides of the argument, let me know if you changed your mind after watching this entire video. But as always, we're going to start this off with another terrible joke. Do you know why you should never spell park backwards? Because if you do, it's a trap. First off, there are two fundamentals I believe very strongly in. The first one is access to information and transparency in the real estate market. I would like to see both buyers and sellers have as much information as possible and the process be as transparent as possible. That's one of the reasons I started this channel, is I want to educate you just like I educate my clients so that they feel like they're the expert when they're buying or selling a house in Canada. So if you like keeping up to date in the real estate market, go ahead, give me a like right now and hit that subscribe button. There's another important thing that I believe very strongly in, and that is privacy as well. At the end of the day, the process of buying a house is a private transaction between both a private buyer and a private seller. So while I want to have as much transparency and information available to both the buyer and the seller, I also want to respect their privacy as much as possible. Okay, so why should blind bids be removed? Well, there's a couple of things to look at here. The first one is buyers won't be forced to overpay for a house without knowing what they could have potentially paid and still got the house. Let's talk about an example really quick. The offer price, or the asking price, let's start with that, is $300,000. Now I know, for anybody not from Regina, that sounds utterly crazy, but that's what you can buy a house for here in my city, so let's use that for easy numbers. Asking price is $300,000. There's three other offers on the property right now. The highest offer is offering $310,000. Now you don't know that as a buyer, you just know there's three offers. So you're thinking, okay, this is gonna go over asking price. I've got to write a high offer because I really want this house. I've got to get this accepted. So you write them an offer of $320,000, $10,000 more than the next highest offer price. Your offer gets accepted. You don't know that you paid $10,000 more than the next highest asking price or offer price. Maybe you could have only paid $312,000 or $315,000 and still got that house. So you overpaid potentially by $10, $12, whatever $1,000 it ends up being because you didn't know what the other offers were. The other big concern is that agents will pressure their buyers into offering even higher amounts so that they get that house, because the buyer's agent doesn't want to keep showing them houses and keep losing offers. So they just say, offer them $50,000 more, and then that offer gets accepted even though they only had to offer maybe $5,000 more. And of course the agent is going to make way more money because they offered them $50,000 more. That's win-win for the agent and the seller, but not a win for a buyer. Boy, maybe we really should remove blind bidding. This is actually sounding like a pretty good idea. And in Australia, they have a solution to this. They have open auctions on houses. So let's check out the Australian model. Maybe it makes sense. That's what we should do in Canada. I've seen some people say that we need to go to the Australian model where they auction off houses. Everybody knows what's going on because that is done right out on the street in front of everybody. So let's chat about the Australian process and see if it makes sense. Maybe this is something that should be done in Canada. First of all, the Australian way, that's actually not very common. In fact, the majority of houses sold in Australia are sold the same way they're sold here in Canada, where buyers make offers and sellers either accept or counter decline those offers. The auction style process is only done in some areas, and the number of homes sold by auction has actually been declining, not increasing in Australia. So let's talk about this auction process and how it works. All buyers have to register upfront. All the inspections are done before the auction process begins. So that means you have to pay to have your inspector come in, or there may be an inspection done ahead of schedule, but any costs incurred in looking at the property are all up front. If you lose that auction or even maybe decide not to enter the auction, you have lost any money you've spent on those inspections. When you register, generally there is a deposit of 10% that is required at the time of registration. Once that bidding process finishes, if you're the last person with their hand up, you've bought that house. But that also means that if you walk away at that point, your deposit is gone. So if you get cold feet, or if there's something else in the deal that just doesn't work for you, you walk away, that deposit's gone. The other problems we've seen with this auction process is the sellers will have friends or family attend the auction, submit bids with the intent of creating frenzy and increasing the final sale price. They have no intention of actually buying the house. They're just putting in higher bids so that other buyers will spend more money on that house. This auction process also means that sellers and buyers have less flexibility. Buyers can't compete anymore on possession day or inclusions or even conditions like they can in a more traditional offer/acceptance process, and the sellers are locked into selling to that highest bidder. They don't have a choice if they like to sell it to somebody else because they met them and they thought that was the right person to buy their house, raise their family. They don't have that. As well, once that highest bidder has won that auction, the sellers are required to negotiate with them unless they're unable to come together with a deal. So they have a lot less flexibility in the process, both for buyers and for sellers. That's a quick look at that Australian auction process where you put up your hand and say, this is what I'm willing to pay for this house. And other people will do the same thing. And once finally only one hand is left, that's who wins that house. And I think this is one of the reasons why people say we should have open bids in Canada. It'll stop people from overpaying. They'll know exactly what the dollar amount is. And if it gets too much, they're not going to pay any more. So from the outside looking in, yeah, I think this actually makes a lot of sense. We should have open bids. But very rarely are houses sold on, here's money, I'll take that house, please. There's usually a lot more going on. There's a lot of complexity in a house purchase. But if it's just purely, here's the dollar amount, here's a house, auction process out in the open, I think makes 100% sense. But like I said, usually deals are far more complex than that. Although we're in a really hot market right now and things are different, still the vast majority of houses are sold in a process where the buyers will offer a certain amount and it will be conditional to a series of conditions. And that adds that layer of complexity to a deal where you can't just say, here's X dollars, because there's going to be conditions that are important to both the buyer and the seller. So what inspections need to be done? Do we need to have a condition for financing approval? Do we have possession days or inclusions to the offer or additional terms to the offer? That's where the buyer and the seller have to come together and find an agreement that works for both parties. So if we're going to have an open bid process, how do we handle this? And I think this is where we open Pandora's box, because outside looking in, it's really easy to say, just make purchase prices available to everybody. Okay, so maybe you know what the purchase price that everybody else is offering, and you can decide whether you would like to offer more money or not. But what if the other buyers are offering a different possession date or different set of inclusions, or they do or do not have conditions like financing and inspections on that offer? Is this better for the buyer, or are they still only working with incomplete information? So do we have to open up the offer process for all items of the offer? Possession date, inclusions, inspections, everything like that. Is that public knowledge to everybody now? And that's where I struggle with this, because at the end of the day, like I've talked about, this is a private transaction between two private individuals. And is this better for buyers? So if you know what every single term is in that offer, all of a sudden, again, we'll go back to my example of $300,000. There's a $310,000 offer. So you could have offered $312,000 and still won that offer. What if the other offer had a different possession date? Maybe that worked better for the sellers. Maybe that other offer, they had cash, they didn't have to get a mortgage, so they don't have a financing condition. Does this panic a buyer and they're going to remove that financing condition just to make their offer look as attractive as that $310,000 one when they still need to get their mortgage approved? And then does that person who offered 310 say, I'm financially secure, you offered 312, I'll offer 315. Now you're put in a position, do you have to offer 317? And do we keep going up the ladder? Where does the process start and stop? How much information do we provide to everybody else in the process? How much information is private information? And that's why I think the whole idea of open bids really opens up a much more complex question, and I don't have all the answers for it. If you've got maybe some solutions, I'd actually like to hear what you guys think should be available. Is it everything that should be available? And does it obviously bring up privacy concerns? And then one of the most important things is at the end of the day, the seller can choose to sell that house to whoever they so choose. I've had many situations where we've put offers together and we have both won and lost offers. And I've had sellers that have decided to take lower offers based on how they felt about the person. I'm talking about two quick examples here. One, I know we were the highest offer because when I looked at the sale price and when I talked with the agent after it was all said and done, we'd offered about $15,000 more than the price that it actually sold for. But these sellers really liked these buyers because they knew them. It was somebody in the community they know. It was a smaller town. They chose to go with that offer because it was somebody that they knew versus our offer, was more money, but they didn't know us and didn't feel as comfortable selling a house to my buyers. Another example, I was helping sell a house and the agent came in, did a fantastic job of presenting his clients and why they should get this house. We had an opportunity to sell it for more money, but these sellers said, I like these buyers and I also feel that they're stronger. There's more likely a chance they're going to close this deal and everything's going to come together as we're looking for. They weren't quite as sure if the other buyers were. So they went with an offer that was actually lower. Maybe they could have got more money, but that was their choice. So I think that the idea of open bids really from the outside looks really good until you start looking into the nitty-gritty details of it, and it becomes a lot more complex. There you have it, both the pros and the cons of the blind bidding process, plus a look at that Australian auction model. Let me know what you guys thought. I asked you before to put in the comments whether you thought that blind bidding should be eliminated. Now, after seeing this, did you change your mind? If so, put in the comments below or reply to your first comment whether you changed your mind or not, and whether removing blind bidding would slow down this kind of real estate market and slow down this crazy price appreciation that we're seeing right now. But you know what else you should do? Check out this series of videos right here for first-time home buyers. And this right here is what the YouTube algorithm thinks that you need to learn about next on Bald Prairie Real Estate. As always, guys, thanks very much for watching.